Welcome into the EnergyTech Podcast presented by Opsite Energy, where we explore the latest innovations and technology shaping the energy industry. Today we're in Canonsburg, PA, and we are super excited. My co-host Mike Flores is super excited. We have a special guest all the way from Vidor, Texas. We got DJ Melancon.
DJ, pronounce that last
close.
name for us.
It's Melancon.
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 There you
Like
go.
that.
We like it. Well, hey, DJ, it's good to have you on the show. You know, glad you could be here with us.
Great to be here.
Canonsburg, another Texas guy coming down here to take part in what we're doing here for Opsite Energy. And DJ's with one of our valued partners, which is Tosibox. And so, DJ, just kind of give us your intro, man. Give us the commercial about yourself.
About myself?
About you, man. Tell us about you and what you're doing with Tosibox.
Yeah, so I'm a senior national account manager for
All right.
Tosibox. I'm based out of Austin, Texas. I grew up in Vidor, Texas. Though.
Vidor,
So that was
yeah,
right.
yeah,
That was
yeah.
right.
I knew you were a hippie at heart, so
I
you got
am
there
a
as fast
hippie
as
at
you
heart.
could, probably.
I'm a redneck hippie. That's what it is.
Yeah, so the first time I seen DJ, I think, was 3 or 4 years ago. We were on a call. I think he was at home at his parents' house, just visiting or whatnot. And he had, in the background, you could see all his like FFA awards and the picture of his cow or whatnot. But I'm like, this guy seems kind of hippie-ish. But yeah, I guess he was just visiting there. He made it to Austin as fast as possible. But I did tell him, hey, you remind me of a guy I went to high school with, and his name was Ryan Bingham. Some of you may know him, but he was at our high school in Stephenville for a little bit. But you get mistaken for Ryan every now and then. You told me in the stockyards.
All the time. In the stockyards specifically, when Yellowstone's on, everyone's like, oh, are you the backup? You're the stand-in.
Yeah,
I'm the
yeah.
stunt guy.
Well,
Yeah.
it's good to have you back. It's good to have you on. And again, Mike, we are talking about Tosibox solutions today. But before we jump into what the heck is Tosibox, if you don't know, in the backdrop of Tosibox, can you kind of share with our audience kind of why this is even important in the first place and give us some context on what we're talking about today?
Yeah, Jeff, this is going to be a big deal because what we're talking about is OT network and hacks that are happening across the United States and globally. So here's some interesting numbers. I'll kick some out to you. 83% of OT leaders experience at least one security breach in the last 3 years. So that's a high number. If you do the math, that's really 3 out of 4 OT leaders. This is anybody that's a director and up. There's about 114% increase in attacks observed in the threat landscape from 2023 to 2024. That doubles. So you go from 420 million nationwide to 900 million. Okay. So that's a big number in of itself. 26% of organizations still lack the adequate network monitoring in their OT space. 1 in 4, if you do the math. Attacks in industrial automation protocols. These are the hidden protocols that you think no one thinks about. They went from 71 to almost 80% in 2024. And then Modbus, that old protocol from the 70s, continues to be part of the big attack vector. It actually comprises 40% of all OT attacks in the U.S., 40%. So that's a big number.
And so when you say OT, Mike, you're not just talking energy OT. Like there's a lot of people on the OT side. You said only, up to 26% of these folks are completely not protected. But in energy, would you expect it to be higher than that number? Is that the average? What are you seeing?
Well, I think this is a number related to anyone that's in the OT space if you take critical infrastructure. So the numbers that I'm pulling are from the FBI. That number is specific to critical infrastructure.
Gotcha.
This isn't even including other platforms. This is all focused around energy and manufacturing critical infrastructure.
Yeah, well, I appreciate those numbers.
It's a big
Definitely a good way to start the show. But let's get back to DJ for a second. We do appreciate you being here for sure. And, just for our audience members who may not be familiar with Tosibox, we got the doom and gloom from Mike for sure, which is it's good things to know. But maybe give us an introduction to Tosibox, and what kind of is the goal of the company, why were they founded, et cetera.
Yeah, it's not all doom and gloom. There are good things. There are good things that are out there, but basically we've been around for 12, 13, 14 years, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
I can't remember exactly what the number is off the top of my head, but basically the whole creation of Tosibox was around specifically the OT networking space, and it was we're trying to take IT equipment and get it to work with the protocols that are in the OT space, and have people that are automation engineers or tech engineers actually be able to construct these networks. And it was just not impossible, but for most of the platforms that are out there, you have to get certified and you have to go through a lot of rigmarole just to be able to deploy these networks.
Right.
And so the initial creator of the patented technology that is Tosibox saw that and said, okay, cybersecurity is not something that's front of mind in the OT space yet.
Right. Definitely not. So.
Yeah, it was, that's very recent, but it's not something that's front of mind. And I want to make something that's essentially an automated platform that anyone, a 5-year-old, can build this type of network, and the cybersecurity is automatically embedded.
That sounds like it's built for me then, because I am not the network engineer type. But yeah, that's really fascinating. And kick it over to you, Mike. Like, as someone that's kind of deeply involved in remote monitoring and all things energy over the last couple decades, like, how have you seen the need for tools like Tosibox grow in the energy industry?
Well, number one, when it comes to something like Tosibox, here's what I think makes it unique. When you talk about the OT space, in the IT space, it is very mature, meaning you have folks that handle specific things. You might have a systems admin, you might have a database person, you have specific roles in IT. A lot of times in the OT space, the work for securing the network can be relegated to someone that's on the automation tech side. This means that they don't have the same training level as someone that might be in the IT space. Right. So that means that attack vectors, when you start talking about cyber attacks, period, they're not in the forefront of what they're doing, because that automation tech may spend more time focused on PLC integration, a platform integration. They might be in measurement. Sometimes they're sharing duties with instrumentation and electrical techs. So what Tosibox does, in my opinion, is it fits the bill for quick deployment of a product with a learning curve that is shortened by automation.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the key for Tosibox. I think that's number one. That's a great key to have in the Tosibox toolbox.
Right. Right.
Absolutely.
So yeah, let's just dive into that deployment aspect a little bit. It sounds obviously one of the things about Tosibox that's unique and kind of a selling point is the simplicity of setting up this. But like, how simple? Like, can you maybe walk us through, DJ, like how the Tosibox is set up and what makes it so user friendly?
Yeah. Essentially, they're building a network with Tosibox is like using Lego blocks. Okay. So there are 3 components to the platform, 3 main components to the platform. There's a hub. Okay, and the hub is like a central VPN aggregator for your entire network. So if you look at like a wagon wheel, a hub and spoke model, It's going to be at the center of your network.
Okay.
And it's a virtual machine, and you can host it anywhere.
All right.
So in a lot of, especially in the oil and gas space and in the upstream space or the midstream space predominantly, you may have on-prem backup servers, and then you've also got, cloud-hosted instances in AWS or Azure or any other given data center. That's where this is going to be hosted, is where the root of your data analytics portion is. That's where you'd host the hub. Okay, so that's step 1. Step 2 is bringing in sites into the network, and these could be dispersed assets that are across the country, across the globe, or within just a specific region like the Permian.
Right.
Right. Those are using edge nodes, and those edge nodes essentially, there's only a couple things that you're going to do to get it set up. You're going to plug it into 9 to 50 volt DC power. You're going to give it any combination of internet access, Ethernet, Wi-Fi, cellular, satellite. It'll auto failover between those. And then you're going to plug it into either a managed or unmanaged switch in the panel or directly into the Ethernet-capable devices you want to bring into your network. And then you're just going to set it on the same LAN IP as the devices you're connecting to. It's automatically going to find the devices that are behind it. As soon as it's powered on, it's got internet, it's connected to your devices, it automatically builds a firewall, takes away all inbound ports, and public-facing static IPs. Right. So there's no snooping this thing. There's no finding it. And then that's the setup of the edge node.
Right, right.
Once that's done, you want to connect it into your hosted environment, you just check a box. You don't have to build IPsec tunnels. It's going to build 256-bit AES encrypted VPN connections directly from your site, directly to your hosted environment.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, I think we got Jason White in here, IDM, in the studio today. It's really a cool place at Opsite today. We got a lot of things going on, but he actually built one this morning and set one up for CNX here, right?
Yeah. So let's kind of talk about that for a second, because in its simplicity is the ability to deploy Tosibox in a matter of minutes rather than taking time to set up traffic. You know, usually because of its what I call fit-for-purpose product line with Tosibox, is it's meant to deploy quickly, operationally, where you need it the most. You know, Jeff, you alluded to CNX Resources, which is one of our partners and clients who we work for on the IDM side. Is you need a quick deployable product that's going to secure the network in a matter of minutes. And I think that's its capability. And so from that standpoint, we've used it with other clients as well that were very similar to CNX, where you had remote assets, you needed to plug in a Tosibox. You can actually train an automation tech, an I&E tech with that OT philosophy, get out there, plug it in. So long as you have the ability to reach the internet, you can program the unit, you can work with your IT, OT team, set that up quickly. And what we're doing there is, number one, keeping that IP range away or out of the internet. It's not visible, right?
Yep.
So we've established that connection. The second thing is we immediately got what we're going to call a Class 1 or Class A network established for remote sites. Third, we're able to optimize the network because we've got that encryption and we've got the ability for that VPN. So again, no IPsec tunnel building, no unnecessary additions, no extra firewalls. I mean, you can literally take that thing right out of the box and deploy it pretty quick with some good training, give it to the right folks, and have it up in a few minutes.
Yeah, so just like to wrap my head around this for anyone that's, we're talking about a small network appliance. Maybe a producer can put one up on the screen right now and post. But we got a small network appliance. You plug it in. Let's say it's at a midstream plant, a cryo plant. Like you're there in the network room. You plug this thing in. You give it internet. What is it doing for me, and how can I access it?
Yeah, so the third component, which we kind of didn't hit on earlier, but that's also bringing users into the network.
Right.
So the remote accessibility portion of it is a labor and cost savings piece, but the main thing with remote access is it actually secure?
Right.
And I mean, even if you're looking at like the TSA cybersecurity guidelines, multi-factor authentication is outlined in that document. I mean, on every single page.
Yep.
Everything in the Tosibox world, because anything that we come out with, anything we deploy is cybersecurity minded first. Every point-to-point connections, 256-bit AES encrypted VPN. Every user that's access to the network is physical first multi-factor authentication. So that means not only do they have to know a password, they also have to have a serialization, token. So like you're going to pick Mike's laptop or your laptop, Jeff, and
iPad, phone,
your iPad, phone,
right.
tablet. That's an approved device to access the network. Then you're going to type in your password. They're going to restrict your access down to whatever they want it to be. It could be the MAC ID, IP, port, protocol level. You can time restrict someone's access. But back to Mike's point of having techs in the field that can just plug this thing in and literally just plug it into the panel and it's ready to go. You can have someone on the inside staff that knows how to configure this thing remotely. They're going to go in and do the configuration. If it's on internet, they can configure it remotely. The tech can plug it into the panel.
Yeah, Jason, hey, bring the device here.
Oh, yeah, perfect.
Make sure you get him on camera, though. I'm just kidding. All right, here we go. So it's just this little network device, right?
Yep.
Me and Mike, we bought like 100 of these or so from our last employer, right?
Yeah.
Right. And so what we were doing there was one, providing that access for like super easy, super quick, and restricting that, allowing companies that have maybe more regional operations in different regions. Maybe you have some skill set, in Florida. Maybe you have some skill set in Louisiana. and they need to remote into the plant to kind of see what happened or how they can help, et cetera, right? Is that possible?
Yeah.
Oh, definitely, right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
There you go.
You know, one of the key things about the product that I really like is it's when you talk about different rules, whether you talk about NIST or you talk about published documents from CISA.gov, Tosibox is a cyber hygiene product right out of the box. What we mean by that is not just its capability out of the box, but multi-factor authentication. I have to have something and know something, right? So each of those is a piece of the cyber hygiene protocol that you already add to someone. It's a built-in part of the process, which is an important piece for Tosibox, number one. I think number two is when you do deploy it, its ability to place things right behind that tool for being such a powerful little beefy product, right? So this means APNs, radio networks. We can also do lots of VLAN capabilities right behind that Tosibox, right? And DJ hit on this earlier, but we can give access specific to the employee and give specific access to vendors that need to conduct work in a safe way and only touching the part of the device, the network that they need to, all the way down to the MAC address level, and we can even limit their time. So rather than giving them access you forget about, they may get access for maybe just 1 hour or 30 minutes of maintenance, and that's what you can do for different user types, right? So that's a unique thing with Tosibox.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many different applications that scenario fits in. I mean, even if you're bringing a system integrator, IDM, into CNX Energy to do a specific project and you have a shutdown for an hour on a specific portion of a facility, and you only want to provide access for that hour, you can restrict that access down to just the hour. And that's a huge piece of sharing user access was a huge outline in the TSA cybersecurity guidelines, because it was someone should only have access to what they actually need access to. They should not be able to access anything else in the network that they don't necessarily need to connect to.
So, yeah, you know, we deployed this out in like a small private midstream company previously. It was kind of a game changer in our minds, but, you know, in some people's minds, it was, hey, what is this? If you're an IT-minded person, it seems to be something that's too good to be true, almost. But, you know, even working here at CNX, you know, we were talking about doing quite a few data sharing things for some of the AI capabilities we're working on remote control and things like that. And we were setting up these complex DMZs and appeasing the IT gods on this end. Like, how is this an easy button, Mike? And does anything out there compare, or is there competitors to what you're doing here? And you know, why is this allowing us to do things really quickly today at CNX versus going down the route of, hey, let's make a big old diagram, let's buy a bunch of firewalls on each side of this, and let's share data in this safe house? Like, how is this speed? You know, definitely a much cheaper option, but as far as like bridging that gap, like, is there anything out there that does this sort of thing as well? Is there any competitors for DJ?
I think there's products out there, you know, but what I will say is this, is that Tosibox has been tried and true in the fit for purpose space, meaning we've actually deployed the product in both a cryo facility, amine plants, rail facilities, industrial space, manufacturing spaces, anywhere in the value chain starting at drilling. So if you're on the drilling pad, you can leverage a Tosibox. If you're in completions, flowback, production, midstream, downstream, refinery, treatment, anyone can take advantage of the product and deploy it pretty quick. So while there are competitors, Jeff, a lot of the products sometimes they might be meant for IP ratings on the indoor side, where a Tosibox, I can DIN rail mount it and place it anywhere along the value chain.
So really specifically for industrial IoT and
absolutely
right.
Industrial IoT is the key. The other thing is that you mentioned the midstream company that we were at. It was quick to deploy. We can conduct a training session with the group, and the cyber hygiene methodology was already pushed out. So you didn't need to try to remember a whole lot of different things. We can set that up quickly, put it in the hands of the automation tech who can install it, and then almost immediately we can start to use it within minutes. The final thing I'll mention is that this player was regional, but they also had assets in Mexico. And so one of the unique features or great features of Tosibox is its eSIM capability.
Right. Dual
And
SIMs. Yeah.
It's got some dual SIM capability, but what folks don't know is if you have assets in other countries, that product, this product for Tosibox is accepted and used in over 190 countries across the globe with their carrier providers. So this means that if you're set up an APN anywhere in another country, you can actually reduce your costs by leveraging Tosibox eSIM capability and cut out penalties that you otherwise might pay by using foreign carriers.
Yeah, so even on stateside, though, we were saving a ton of money, or potentially the business case behind Tosibox at the time was, hey, we got all these private cell networks, or we're using these SIM cards. Because, again, we're talking about West Texas assets. Cellular is used in a lot of places. Like, what was it about Tosibox that made it unique for us to be able to pull that SIM card and all those plans into, hey, here's how many gigabytes of data we need each month versus, hey, we got to have a different plan for each device currently.
Sure.
Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, I almost feel like DJ can talk about this, but I love it so much. I mean, I get pretty passionate about it. So, one thing about Tosibox is its capability for what we call a shared plan strategy. Mm-hmm. What this means is typically in oil and gas or anyone that's got remote sites, you're typically paying for a plan for a provider, and then you turn on what's called a backup or backhaul provider. So you're going to have two providers that you're limited to. And what happens is you're beholden to those providers, and in a lot of cases, it becomes with a contractual agreement. If you pop in that eSIM capability with Tosibox, because of their partnerships, you're able to deploy a Tosibox, put in dual SIM, and it's going to apply the best network methodology. Yeah. That's the best way I can describe the product. So it's going to pick the best network automatically for you in the area. That doesn't mean, however, that you can't add things such as Starlink or other services. Right. So while you can still take advantage of the eSIM, you can still leverage if you have a Starlink agreement, which is pretty good as well out there in remote sites. So you're really not losing anything by taking part in that shared plan strategy that Tosibox thought about. And the reason they thought about it is because you have folks like DJ that have been in the field and have worked with operators for years, and he's spent time in that industry. So that it makes a lot of sense for Tosibox to push that out as a product or as an option, really.
Yeah, and just kind of to hint real quick, we call it a Tosi SIM.
Yeah.
So we have to throw Tosi in front of everything.
Tosi.
A Tosi SIM. Yeah.
So it's an eSIM card that it works with carriers in 109 countries around the globe. It's the same exact SIM card. So for the Mexico deployments, we use the same SIM card. We just selected which carriers worked best in that region of where we were deploying it in Mexico. But in the States, it's AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile in the same SIM.
Yeah.
And when you probably one of the biggest headaches whenever you were trying to deploy, especially really remote assets, is which carrier is going to be best. I mean, if you look in the Permian, I lived out there for a little while.
Oh,
you
cross
it. Yeah, I know.
Just kidding. Beautiful place. God's country, right?
It is God's country. Great show on it, Landman. Yeah.
Landman, yeah, that's big right now.
Yeah, but you could drive. I had an AT&T iPad and a Verizon phone. On one side of the street, the Verizon phone works, the AT&T iPad doesn't. On the other side of the street, the AT&T iPad works, the Verizon phone doesn't. So trying to figure out which carrier is going to work best, setting up private APNs with these carriers specifically, you also have to think about the point of failure of it's routing through private infrastructure from a tower to then the Verizon data center. And then you're connecting to the Verizon data center to get your data to those sites and to be able to access those sites. Verizon just had a meltdown a couple weeks ago, and people just lost every one of their sites, a connection to every single one of their sites. The beauty of that eSIM is it automatically selects the best carrier, and if one of them drops off, it's going to pick the next best carrier for you, so you're not just tied into one, plus the amount of cost savings. Setting up a private APN infrastructure is expensive.
Not only that, I think, so if you're listening in, I know we've talked a little bit mostly about the energy space, but we also have a client that we're going to be serving there in Canada in the data center space. This is a data center colo where we want to take advantage of Tosibox as well, because there's lots of challenges in that space as well. So if you're in the automation space, if you're instrumentation, if you're working in colo spaces, you can still leverage Tosibox. And in a moment, we'll talk about some of the advantages of with Tosibox and some of the other Tosi products. And advantages.
Love it.
Yeah, we were going to get into that, and we also want to talk. I think we got Jerry Reeves joining us tomorrow remotely. Maybe even Jason back here. I'll get off this show because it's going to be a little bit more technical. But one, Mike, can you tease us what we might talk about tomorrow with Jerry? And then, after Mike's with that, I'd like to see, what you can tell us about the future of Tosibox, maybe some of the products and things y'all are working on to take this even to another level.
Yeah, so picking up for part 2 tomorrow, we're going to refresh on Tosibox a little bit. Then we're going to bring in 2 folks that I think are critical to the discussion. Number one is our own Jason White with IDM, who's been in the IT, OT space, especially working on the industrial side. So I consider him to be a OT subject matter expert and has seen a few deployments, and we'll talk a little bit about that. The other is Jerry Reeves himself with Tosibox. I think when I think of someone like Jerry, I think of someone that can speak from the IT side and integrate the OT perspective in the IT conversation. That's the best way I can talk about Jerry Reeves, and you'll get a chance to hear him tomorrow. And I think it's going to be a great show with us. So if you're listening in, don't forget there's going to be another part 2, maybe even a part 3, because we're that excited about it. So, yeah, Jeff, I think it's important also to hear a little bit about what Tosibox is doing.
We'll look forward to that to tomorrow. And then, back to you, DJ. Like, what are we working on behind the scenes? What can you tell us?
I will pull back the curtain a little bit.
All right, please do.
Bring it.
Constantly trying to add new features to the Tosibox platform. A couple of those, data is by far the currency in OT networking. I mean, everything that we focus on is getting data out of field sites for central management, for you to be able to look at your entire fleet, getting users in whenever there's an alarm or notification, right? That's what everything is about, secure connectivity.
Right.
Where everything has been trending and where it's going is also bringing applications, instead of having everything sitting in a cloud location, is bringing it down to the edge. And then how much data do you actually want to push up to the cloud?
Pruning data.
Yeah, it's essentially, yeah. MQTT has been a huge portion of that pub sub, right? Only if these parameters change do I want to get any data out of it, right?
Especially in those remote areas where you talked about, connectivity being such a pain in the butt,
issue.
right?
Yeah. Kind of the next iteration is there are a lot of IPC or industrial PC deployments that are going on with something like an Ignition Edge or protocol conversion software like AutoSol's EACM, putting that down in at the edge and being able to convert an OPC or Modbus to MQTT and then kick it off into the cloud. That's something that we're working on behind the curtain right now.
Okay.
Is actually the beauty of the Tosibox software, and we've been asked for it for 3 years by 50 million people. Both of you have also asked me for this about 50 million times. But it's having the full Tosibox security and connectivity platform on the WAN side of the network, and then on the LAN side being able to put things like Ignition Edge or EACM or Node-RED or maybe a Nozomi application, for some soft cyber and actual detection. And that's something that's in the hands of our CTO and our tech team right now, and they're currently testing and baiting, and we should have something here in the near future.
Sounds exciting. Anything else you'd like to share?
Yeah, one other piece is fleet management software. So as of right now, when you connect a Tosibox Edge node and you put it on the same LAN IP, you're going to pull up every IP that's in that range. So if everything's at 10.10.10, everything that's 10.10.10 is going to pull up, right? But what exactly is that device? Is it a Siemens PLC? Is it a ControlLogix? Is it an IPC from Moxa? The next iteration and what we have that's called Tosi Control, which is basically a Visio of your entire network currently, is not only can you click on the edge node and see all of the parameters and what the cell signal's doing and what the downtime and uptime of that site is, now you'll also be able to see, okay, well, this is a ControlLogix PLC, and it's running this version of the software. And kind of the next iteration of that, this is a huge TSA cybersecurity push, is every time there's a patch update, it's because there's a cyber vulnerability somewhere.
Yeah, and that probably scares people to even hear you talk about updating and patching things like PLCs, right? Like
the amount of time it takes, But being able to just look across your entire fleet and see, okay, here's all the PLCs that I have that are out-of-date software, and we need to create a plan. That's something that's coming in Tosi Control and in the Tosibox platform as well. Those are both. There's a lot of other things that are coming down the pipe as well, but those are two, to me, they're two of the most exciting pieces, because the simplicity of the Tosibox platform is already the hugest part. Hugest. Very huge. Biggest part of and selling point of the platform in the first place, and a reason why you would deploy it, but then adding on extra layers to bring those applications to the edge, and then also talking about mass scale fleet management. You've got several hundred sites, and you want to be able to look at everything from a single pane of glass. That's what
some people might just plug it in, and all of a sudden now they know what they have. It's doing their inventory.
This
Maybe
is
that bad, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's really good, man. We really appreciate you coming out to Cannonsburg today. We'll have you back tomorrow with the Jerry Reeves joining remotely for the next episode. So, again, appreciate you coming in. Mike, any final words?
No, man. The Tosibox is a well-positioned product, especially for the OT space. We're excited about it, so catch us on that part 2. And again, don't forget to smash that button, man, to subscribe to us. You can pick up, and we'll add some additional links for Tosibox to grab some quick data sheets and listen in for part 2 and potentially part 3.